Honestly, the FBI and the FSB are almost indistinguishable. Screw the FBI. Let's just start the week off the right way, shall we? Look, we've hit critical mass here with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And I realize that many of you were there earlier, and, you know, there's some truth. There's actually a lot of truth in saying that a lot of the rank and file agents at the FBI are not the crazy people. That's very, very true. But let's be honest, the FBI as an institution is as corrupt, if not worse, than the ATF. And the communists won. For those of you who paid attention to this show for any length of time, you know that one of the 45 communist goals was to discredit and eventually dismantle the FBI. Success. And what a lot of people, here's where some people don't quite understand how this all plays out. Some people, when they hear me say that, they will respond and go, well, the FBI has done a fine job of doing that themselves. Yeah, with the communist operatives within their ranks. That's what's happened. The FBI has discredited themselves. Remember, infiltrate, discredit, eventually dismantle the FBI. That's the goal. That's the 45 communist goals goal in the FBI. And they have done a fine job of it. You know, we're at a point where we're not just talking about an event, even if it was an egregious event that the FBI was party to. We are talking about an agency now that has multiple years of systemic and coordinated fraud and criminal conspiracy against the American people, duly elected officials, the news media, and other individuals. There's not much else you can say about it. Now, if you're listening to this and you are a relative or a friend of or an FBI agent or a staff member who works at the FBI and you're not in that crazy camp, I'm sorry, but you work for a corrupt organization now. The FBI isn't what the FBI has always been. The FBI is as bad, if not worse, than some of the stuff that we see in other countries, you know, like the FSB. Honestly, the FBI and the FSB are almost indistinguishable. I want to let that sit in. For those of you who don't know, the FSB is the new version of the KGB in Russia. If you don't understand how terrible it is to say that the FBI and the FSB are virtually indistinguishable from one another in the way that they conduct themselves within their own country, and that doesn't scare you, there's something wrong with you. But that's who they are. I mean, just a short list here, and we'll get into more, but just a short list, okay? The FBI has been raiding the homes of journalists before Project Veritas. We'll get to the Project Veritas stuff here in just a second. It's been raiding the homes of journalists for a few years now. The FBI concocted and fabricated an entire criminal conspiracy against a duly elected president of the United States. The FBI, while admitting that Hillary Clinton was committing crimes, elected not to charge her with said crimes. The FBI deliberately set up and lied about General Michael Flynn in order to get him arrested. And I get it. There were agents at the FBI who were fighting against that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that there aren't good people at the agency. I'm saying, as a whole, the agency is now bad. There is no redemption for the FBI at this point in time without a complete and total leadership change. And I know a lot of people have been calling for, let's abolish the FBI and everything else. All right, let me ask you this question, though. Another agency has to rise in the FBI's place because no other agency does what the FBI does, right? So who are you going to staff that agency with? Likely FBI personnel. So what do we have? We have the FBI by another name. That's not really a solution, is it? So getting rid of the FBI or disbanding the FBI is not really the answer, because the FBI will just be filled with the ranks of the ATF, the FBI, Homeland Security, these other agencies that have already become corrupt. But the FBI has systemically been fabricating evidence. The FBI killed Lavoy Finicum and then covered it up. The FBI had a high-definition drone above Kenosha, Wisconsin, recording the Kyle Rittenhouse situation, didn't tell anybody about it, didn't release the footage, didn't tell everybody there was footage that would have exonerated Kyle Rittenhouse before this circus that has been happening since the shooting in Kenosha and now his subsequent bogus kangaroo court trial. Kangaroo court is probably not the right way of defining because the judge is actually conducting himself pretty good. But you get what I'm saying. The FBI withheld that evidence. The FBI sent people inside the Trump campaign to spy on them. They paid operatives and implanted them in the Trump campaign to spy on them. And the FBI is the ones who created the narrative that there might have been a need for those operatives inside the Trump campaign. The FBI lied to the FISA court to get FISA warrants on Carter Page and others. The FBI brought back Andrew McCabe and reinstated his pension after Andrew McCabe was recommended for being fired by the FBI for all sorts of nefarious activity. You get it? What redeeming quality does the FBI have now, besides the occasional raid where they capture, child traffickers, which I will celebrate until I'm blue in the face every time it happens? That doesn't change the fact that the organization itself is now a snake in the garden. The FBI is no longer a trustworthy agency. The FBI isn't an organization that people should cooperate with. Routinely gathering information on American citizens in violation of the law, using Stingray technology to spy on people's cell phones and text message conversations in violation of the law, routinely using other surveillance technology to violate the civil rights of American citizens, getting caught, getting admonished by the courts and doing it, pinky promising and swearing they'll never do it again, getting caught doing it again, then promising they'll never do it again, we promise this time, and then getting caught doing it again. You get the idea? This is the FBI in the United States of America, and everything that I have just told you is a factual truth. Those have all happened, every single one of them. It's not me guessing at something. There are court documents. There are FOIA documents. There's concrete physical evidence in black and white that proves everything I've just told you is 100% true. So why on God's green earth should anybody give a damn about the Federal Bureau of Investigation? And why should we treat them as anything other than a hostile entity that is corrupt and hell-bent on pushing their own political agenda and taking down whatever innocent person they can that gets in their way? How is the FBI any different than the Vladimir Putin-controlled FSB in Russia? How? And I got to tell you, if you're an FBI agent or you work for the agency right now and the hairs on the back of your neck are standing up, you don't like what I'm saying, you can't prove anything that I've just said wrong, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. The other crap that we've been covering for the past 12 years could take up several 3-hour shows in and of itself. And we have tried to be patient. We have tried to give you the benefit of the doubt as an agency that it's just a few people at the top who have been doing these things. There's just one problem. Almost every single mass public shooter was known to the FBI. Almost every single act of jihadist terrorism in the United States of America involves a suspect that was known to the FBI. Then you've got other cases in which the FBI knew that a gymnastics coach was molesting and raping young women on the gymnastics team, and the FBI didn't do a damn thing about it. So let me ask you again. If you work for the agency or you're affiliated with somebody who works with the agency and the hairs on the back of your neck are standing up and you're really ticked off at me right now, why is it that every single thing that I have just spent the last 10 minutes telling you is true? And why does it not make you absolutely sick to your stomach? Why? Because you're one of the good ones? Okay. Why do the rank and file continue to keep making the same exact mistakes as the leadership at the FBI? It has become impossible to just say, the rank and file at the FBI are good. It's just the leadership that's bad. Okay, we went with that for how many years now, folks? It's at a point where, if the rank and file do not stand up to the corrupt leadership that is pushing partisan political agendas, and the rank and file are going to go after journalists for doing their job, and they're going to ignore gymnastics coaches raping women, and they're going to do all of these things where they just let all of this stuff happen, and they're not going to actually do their job within the confines of the law, of course. Don't want the FBI to abuse their authority, which we have ample examples of the FBI abusing their authority. The FBI won't even testify in any case where stingray technology has been used to capture a criminal because they don't want to reveal to people what the stingray technology is. And while everything I've told you in the first 12 minutes of this show is factually true and backed up in black and white government documents, I will offer one piece of opinion that is not 100% backed up and 100% certain. You remember a couple of years ago when listening devices were found all over Washington, D.C.? You remember that when we covered that story? You know what those listening devices looked exactly like? Now, they blamed it on a foreign power installing these listening devices all over Washington, D.C. You know what these listening devices did? Josh, you any idea what these devices did? Oh, they tapped into your phone and your text messaging. Like Stingray does. And I came on this show and I said, I would bet money that this is the FBI doing it. Somebody found the device. The FBI can't come clean, obviously, so they have to blame it on a foreign power. But I would bet money the FBI is running their own domestic intelligence operations in Washington, D.C., and using that information to advance their power and political agenda. Now, that last one is my opinion based on a real story. But everything else I told you in the first 12 minutes of this show is 100% factually true. So at what point in time do you say, enough is enough? It's not just the leadership at the FBI. It's the whole damn agency. That's where we're at. There might be some good eggs at the FBI. I have no doubt that there are. But guess what? For those of you good eggs who are listening to this show who are irritated, a little upset, maybe realizing that I'm speaking the truth here, you're not doing enough to protect the American people from your agency. And the fact that your agency is indistinguishable from the FSB in Russia is scary as hell. So what's the latest antics from the FBI? We'll chat about that. Coming up, News Talk 95.3, Michiana's news channel.
Casey Hendrickson.
News Talk 95.3, Michiana's news channel.